the end of this chapter, you will be able to do the plot between voltage and time, current and time, power and time for resistive loads. Describe the relation between RMS and peak values, which we already covered in resonance chapter. These equations are already covered in resonance chapter. You will be able to design and plot the graphs of your RC passive filters. Active filters are also named as the part of this the filter topic, but I need to find out from you how much you know about operation amplifier. Otherwise I have to provide you a detailed lecture for operation amplifier so that you understand what is active and what is passive. But in basic terms, active means the filters which are made with the help of active components like your transistors, and operation amplifier is basically made up of transistors only, so it is also called as an active device. And your passive devices are your resistance, capacitance and inductance. These all things we covered in your resonance chapters. The only thing is that break frequency. So the break frequency is the point in the plot of your gain versus frequency, where from where the gain starts to increase or start falling. That frequency is called as break frequency, which we know as we go in this know that chapter. We mostly use audio signals or we use electrical signals. If we talk anything about with respect to audio signals, the human ear can detect audio frequencies which are in the range of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Though as people get older, their range of hearing decreases. As we all know that as we grew older, we start hearing less, particularly at the high frequency end. Human hearing is most sensitive to the sound in the middle range from 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz, corresponding with the range of frequencies found in speech. So whatever we speak, this is the normal, can say, frequency of the speech which we talk with someone else. So if we are increasing it beyond this, then either we are speaking too fast or loudly also. The sound produced by a human voice or a musical instrument have three characteristics. First is pitch, indicates the frequency of the sound. Loudness indicates the amplitude of the sound. The larger the amplitude, the more energy the sound wave contains, and hence the louder the sound. Tone describes the quality of the sound, depends on the shape of the waveform, determined by the mixture of frequency that it contains. Two notes may have the same pitch and loudness but do not sound the same because they have different mixtures of frequencies and so different waveforms. Now, introduction of the filters with respect to the devices we used or the instruments we use. Filters are usually used extensively in audio and communication systems. They allow some signal frequencies to pass through while blocking others. The pictures on the right shows oscilloscope traces for the same note played on different musical instrument. So if we are using a tuning fork, which you might have used in your physics labs, and you hit it with something, then it will create a frequency like humming sound of something, something like that, and it is usually of this form. It's a perfect sinusoidal, you can see. Even though they have the same loudness, the notes sound different because the instrument do not produce pure notes containing just one frequency. If you are using, let's say, violin, it will create a sinusoidal wave like this, with, you can see that changes on the tops, glitches, you can say. And piano, if we are even using the same pitch, but it will have different notes, different, so that's why you can see the waveforms are different, and you can see that there is a difference in the frequency also. Rather, the sound consists of principal frequency and a series of weaker frequencies. The principal or fundamental note is also referred to as first harmonic. So depending upon the change in the waveform, you have a first harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonic. So suppose the first harmonic has a frequency f, then the components with the frequency 2f is called the second harmonic, the components with the frequency 3f is called the third harmonic, and so on. The perfect example for this is, everyone does that in their childhood, that you go near a pond, you go near a river or sea, and you throw a stone there, and you see that there are ripples which are created in the water, and those ripples, if you see, they are at very high amplitudes and variations when they are close to the center, and as you go away from the center, you can see the circles are created, and you can see the ripples keeps on decreasing. So they are the perfect example of your first harmonic, second harmonic, and third harmonic. The harmonic content defines the shape of the waveform and the tone of the sound. Different instruments produce notes with a different combination of harmonics. Now, the bandwidth requirement for transmitting speech. During normal conversation, the human voices produces constantly changing range of amplitudes, loudness, and frequency, pitch. Like I'm taking a lecture now, so you will see that at certain points there will be loudness, there will be my frequency, or you can say the speed by which I'm speaking will be high, and then it will be low. So it has changing range of amplitudes, loudness, and frequency, pitch. To manage this, communication systems assume a maximum amplitude and a maximum bandwidth. For example, the number of separate telephone channels that can be transmitted over a telephone network depends on the bandwidth allocated to each channel. This bandwidth should be sufficient to identify the caller's voice and to understand what they are saying. Rather than allocate a bandwidth from 20 Hz to 20 kHz to cover the full audio frequency range, the public telephone system, let's say in UK, uses more economical bandwidth of 3.1 kHz, allowing frequencies between 300 Hz to 3.4 kHz and filtering out the other unnecessary frequencies. This is usually represented by a rectangle as shown in the following diagram. So if you see, there is a particular band in which you have to create it for the transmitting the speech from 300 Hz to 3.4 kHz. So bandwidth requirement for transmitting music. In general, music instruments produce sounds with a bandwidth covering the full audio range, that is about 20 Hz to about 20 kHz. This is significantly greater than the 3.1 kHz bandwidth limit of the telephone system. So it is no wonder that music transmitted over the telephone is of poor quality. In practice, to reduce costs, broadcasters of music restrict the frequency range to 30 Hz to 15 kHz approximately. Because if you are using a high frequency range, then you are paying more to the to the to the government, from which you get the bandwidth over which you can transmit. Using the same approach as for speech, the frequency spectrum of a musical signal is represented by the following diagram. Filter circuits are used to control the bandwidth allocated to speech and music signals in communication system. So when we are saying that we want to transmit between a particular range, so we need to restrict the information within that particular frequency range. So we need a filter. Suppose this is, we want to transmit between 1 to 3 only, then we have to use a filter which goes from 1 to 3 only, and the remaining frequency components it will remove. So this is the basically the use of filters. Now ideal filters. So ideally, when we are saying ideal word, the ideal means that in ideal conditions means there should not be any losses, any variation due to interference, noise, or anything else. So if a filter is used, let's say I'm using a filter in a lab environment, So in that environment the filter is going to behave like ideal, mathematically what we are thinking it should behave. But when we use it in the real life, or you can say in air on wires, then it behaves non-ideal, and there are some losses, noise, interference which affect the performance of the filter. So we have a low pass filter, high pass filter, and a band pass filter. Low pass filter, as its name suggests, this type of filter allows low frequency signals to pass through unaffected but blocks high frequency signals. Its frequency spectrum is shown in the next diagram, drawn for a LPF which blocks frequencies above 4.5 kilohertz. So what the low LPF will do is that you will define a particular frequency above which it will not pass any information. So you have an amplitude, and suppose you have a signal, so you will multiply it with it, and it will allow a certain portion of the signal and the remaining will be blocked. So this filter passes all frequencies below 4.5 kilohertz without any change but blocks higher frequencies so that no trace of them appears at the output. The graph shows in the example 1 the effect of this LPF on a speech signal. So let's say we have a speech signal from 0.02 hertz to kilohertz to 20 kilohertz range, and if we use a filter used here, defined here, so it's starting from 0 and it pass only from 0 to 4.5. So if you will apply this input to the filter providing us output this, then it will pass only the signals which are up to 4.5 kilohertz, and the remaining signals will be blocked. Even though the bandwidth has severely cut back, the signal will still be distinguishable. It is the quality that has been lost by cutting off the high frequency component. So you might be wondering that I am sending the signal in this frequency range, then why, what will be the happen to the information above it? The information is is sent in the form of your amplitude here, and the variations of the amplitude is constant over this range, so the information is still there. Okay, the wider frequency is used to provide the better quality of transmission. So the filters are used to reduce that frequency which can be used for other users or the other people using the same thing. The second example, the graph shows the effect of a low pass filter on the frequency spectrum of a square wave signal containing frequency components above and below 4.5 kilohertz. So this is your input. Again you are using this filter, and when you are applying it you will get output up to this point, and remaining will be blocked. Blocked means the filter will pass only the frequency range for which it is working, and the remaining frequency range will be blocked by it. Now the high pass filter. This type of filter allows high frequency signals to pass through unaffected but blocks sorry it's here, it is something I need to change. When this is low, please change it in notes also when you are doing it. So what it is doing is that it is allowing high frequency signals to pass through unaffected but blocks low frequency signals. Its frequency spectrum is shown in the diagram below, which blocks frequencies below 9.5 kilohertz. So whatever the frequency is below 10 will block it, and all the frequencies which are above 10 will be passed by this filter. So for this filter, all frequencies above 9.5 kilohertz would be allowed through without any changes. All the frequencies below 9.5 hertz would be blocked, and no trace of them would appear at the output. Now if you are using this filter and we are using this signal there as an input, so what it will do is that all the frequency component which are below 9.5 means 2, 4, 6 and all these are blocked, and it will pass only the frequency component which are greater than 9.5. So this will be the output. Third example is of your band pass filter. So this filter allows only a certain range of band of frequencies. So using a low pass filter and a band pass filter, the problem is that you provide a certain frequency, and a low pass all the frequencies which are below it, and a high pass all the frequencies which are above it. But what we if we want a certain band, means let's say I am saying from 2 to 3 hertz I want to pass, and the remaining I want to block. So for that we have to use a band pass filter. So this filter allows only a certain range or band of frequencies to pass through unaffected. Any signal having a field frequency either low or higher than this band is blocked. So for the filter described, it is from 4.5 to 9.5 kilohertz. So all frequencies between 4 kilohertz and 9.5 kilohertz are allowed through. So if you have this in all frequencies below, and you are using you can say starting 4.5 kilohertz or above 9.5 kilohertz are blocked, 9.5 and no trace of them, it will pass out all the frequency component between this range, and the remaining here and on this side are blocked. Now for example, a radio signal has the following frequency spectrum. It is applied to the input of a band pass filter which has the following characteristics. So this is your input, this is your filter. If you will multiply them, so when we are multiplying, remember, suppose the amplitude here is 2 and the amplitude here is, let's say, 4. So you will multiply the amplitude and you will multiply the signals directly in terms of the range they are defined. So this start from 200, this start from 210. So in this range, this will be the output. Remember, if the amplitude here is 2, the amplitude here is, let's say, 3, so the amplitude of this one will be 6, depending upon the amplitudes here. So if you want a filter to just to pass the no amplification in the input signal, you just want to block a certain portion of frequencies and want to pass the remaining portion of the frequencies, then you need to use a filter with an amplitude equals to 1. So whatever the amplitude of this signal will be, that will be the amplitude of the final output. Okay, now up to this point we are assuming that the filters are behaving ideally, but in real life they don't. The filters usually drift from their um, original ideal nature when they are used in any circuit or in radio. They start behaving non-ideal due to the different components there which affects their performance. Maybe it's due to the resistance capacitance there, or maybe due to the interference there, some atmospheric changes, maybe due to some noise in the surroundings. All these things results in non-ideal behavior of filters. Now if as an exercise, an engineer is testing a filter. The following diagram shows the block diagram of the test system and the frequency characteristics of the filter. So you have a signal input, signal output, and you have a filter. So if you see, it operates in the frequency range of 425 kilohertz to 455 kilohertz. So the first question is, what is the name of this filter? The name of this filter is band pass filter because it is operating in a particular band of frequencies. Sometimes people say that low pass filter is also a band pass filter because it operates from 0 to a certain band, which is true in some context, but it's not exactly true. The reason being because the lowest frequency is always fixed as 0. The engineers inputs a signal having the following frequency spectrum, and you have to find the output. So your input is this, and you have to upload the output. So I left it on you to upload this output, and I will upload the solution of this one. Then we have an input this, and you have to upload the output again, and this one in third input, and then you have to upload the output. Now, real filters, or you can say non-ideal filters. Filters fall into two main categories: active filters and passive filters. So we are only dealing with passive filters here. So depending upon how we go, how we progress in this course, we will see if we can cover active filters. And I have to find out from you also whether how much you know about operation amplifier. So if you are very good with operation amplifier, then I'm going to cover active filters also, but not for the test too. Passive filters made from combinations of resistors, capacitors and inductors, and can suppress certain frequencies within a frequency spectrum. In a DC circuits, in DC circuits, capacitors usually act as a break in the circuit. They prevent the flow of continuous current. In AC circuits, however, their behavior seems different. A continuous AC current can flow. Capacitors limit this current in a way that resembles the behavior of resistors in DC circuits. They do not have a resistance as such but have capacitance reactance. This measures the opposition of the capacitor to an AC current. It is given by a symbol XC and is measured in ohms. The following equation is used to calculate the capacitive reactance as we did in the chapter of resonance, and you know this. Now, if you see, this graph shows as how the capacitance reactance changes as the frequency of the signal changes. So if you see, if I compare it with your let me bring the pen from the pointer. If you remember the equation of a hyperbola, so it is usually xy square equals to c square. This is your x. So if I compare your f, your xc is equals to 1 upon 2 pi f r and c. So what we are doing is we are plotting your reactance with frequency. So we can say x c into f equals to a constant, or we can say that this constant is equals to a c square. Because we are using c as a capacitance, we can say it as equals to an a square also. So we can say that your reactance into frequency is equals to a constant square, which is again a constant, and the graph is like a hyperbola. This is called a hyperbolic plot. So the capacitor behaves as a frequency dependent resistor. It has a huge effect on the AC current when the frequency is low, but a much smaller effect as the frequency rises. So you can say that when the frequency will increase, the capacitance capacitive reactance will decrease. When frequency is low, it is high. When you have a frequency equals to 0, that is the lowest frequency you have, because frequency cannot be negative, it is always positive. So when it is 0, you can say Xc will be equals to infinite. So it provides infinite reactance to current or the potential when the frequency is equals to 0, or you can say for DC is your frequency equals to 0. Let me bring the pointer again. When considering the combined effect of resistance and capacitance in the circuit, we cannot simply add together resistance and reactance. We define a new term, impedance, and you know how to calculate impedance. It's a square of real part plus a square of imaginary part or complex part. So if you have a 2.2 kilo ohm resistor and a 47 nanofarad capacitor, if you need to find the reactance and capacitance of the capacitor and impedance of the circuit at two different frequencies, this is the method. This has been covered by us in resonance again. So you can say that at low frequency the capacitor is the dominant component, whereas at the high frequency the resistor is the main contributor. You can see it from here. Out of at 10 kilohertz, the capacitor is 338.6 ohm reactance. Your capacitance will be low, it is 33.863. A low pass filter, suppose we are generating a low pass filter, you have an input here, R resistance and a capacitance, they are in series, and you are taking output from your across the capacitor. So it's basically it's used to remove high frequency component from a signal spectrum. The circuit consists of a resistor in series with a capacitor. The output voltage is taken across the capacitor as shown, as I explained. Considering this circuit as a voltage divider, the voltage output can be calculated using a modified version of the voltage divider formula. So if you know the formula for voltage divider, suppose we have a resistance R1 here and a resistance R2 here. Let me bring the pen. So suppose this is R1 and this is R2. Suppose I'm saying, just to explain you how the voltage divider works, and you want to find the voltage across R2. So we can say V2 is the voltage across R2. So V2 will be divided by R2 divided by R1 plus R2 and V in, if it is like that. Because if you know that in series the voltage divides and in parallel the current divides. So V, if you remember, V is equals to I R, and you can say V is proportional to R. So V2 will be dependent on the resistance of R2, means the resistance of this part, and divided by total resistance. You will multiply it with your input resistance. So in a similar way, we can say that it is equals to Xc, the reactance of this part, divided by total impedance. But here we were doing it direct addition or direct sum of the components, but in this case we have a resistance and a capacitance, so we need to find it using this method which we did in this. So our impedance is this, Z equals to R plus jXc. So when we need to find the magnitude of the impedance, then we will do under root of R square plus X square C. So this is my total impedance as in place of this. So it will be XC divided by total impedance into input. So if we need to find the voltage gain, then the voltage gain will be V out divided by V in. You can say it is will be XC divided by under root of R square plus S x square C. For low frequencies, we can say, as we did it in the previous page, that XC will be greater than the resistance. So R square will be so small compared to x square C. So we can say that this complete part will be equals to x square C root, and you can say then it will be XC divided by XC, which will be equals to 1 only. At very high frequencies, we can say R square is greater than x square C. So this part will be reduced to R square only, and root of R square will be R. So then it will be equals to 1 upon 2 pi FCR. The voltage gain is less than 1, meaning that high frequency signals will be suppressed. What happens to the mid frequency range? As the frequency is increased from a low value, at some point the value of XC becomes equals to R. This frequency marks the transition between the two extremes and is given a special name, the break frequency. As I told you earlier, that break frequency is basically the frequency at which your gain either start falling or start increasing, and in this case makes the transition between the two extreme and is given a special name. So you can say the frequency is increased from a low value, at some point the value of XC becomes equals to R. So at this point it is called as break frequency. Then at the break frequency, XC is equals to 1 upon 2 pi FBC. So you can say your FB will be equals to, this is needs to become this side, FB, which can be rearranged as break frequency will be XC is equals to R 2 pi RC. Substituting this into the voltage gain formula, this one, then you have R square plus x square C. So you can say it is equals to x square C plus x square C equals to 1 upon root 2. So V out equals to V in. So it has been shifted when I change it from PDF to this. So this is a V in here. So this is this is V in. So this is a V in here which needs to be cancelled, and this is a V in here also, which shifted here. Okay, so V out equals to V in divided by root 2, or you can say V out is equals to 0.707 into V in. At the break frequency, then V out will be approximately 0.7 into V in. This occurred earlier when dealing with the bandwidth of op amps. This is not related to this chapter here. This we will do when if we will do op amps here. Okay, now you have to solve this question with respect to the values we have taken. Everything is defined here. I will cover this part. Now if we need to find the effect of frequency on the voltage gain, first of all you need to understand this graph. This is a semi-logy graph paper, and it works. Let me bring the pointer. The shape of this frequency spectrum is not of an ideal low pass filter. The knee as the trace approaches the break frequency is caused by the behavior of the capacitor. So basically if you see, it should behave like this ideally at this can say voltage also, but it's going down like this. So it's not coming like this. and going down like this. It's going away from the ideal shape. It's going, if you see, if you compare it with the hyperbola we plot, so it's taking a bit of waveform of that. So it's basically the presence of capacitance bringing the change in the shape of the waveform. Its reactance changes continuously with frequency. It does not suddenly switch from behind being high to being low. So if you see Xc is equals to 1 upon 2 pi f RC. So the frequency changes the reactance with the frequency changes the reactance. So if it's high, the reactance is low. If the frequency is low, the reactance is high. So due to which the filter is not able to switch ideally. Okay, so the ideal graph is also compared with it. There is a roll off in gain as the break frequency is approached. Gain slowly falls over a range of frequencies. No vertical drop at the break frequency, so it's not dropping like this directly from here to here. It's dropping in the form of a hyperbolic kind of curve. There is a small output voltage even at high frequencies. You can see that there is an output voltage at high frequencies. However, ideally there should be zero. Despite all these deviations from the ideal, in practice this approach works very well. Sometimes we use two stages or three stages of filter and we get what we want to do, receive from it. Two line approximation of a frequency response. We can predict the frequency response of a filter by representing the response by two straight lines on this log to log paper. To do so for the above filter, draw a horizontal line at 10 volt as far as the break frequency 900 Hz. So draw a straight line here, draw a straight line here. Now draw a second line at 45 degree from the end of the first line to cut this one. So draw a line like this at 45 degree. Then this two line approximation is shown as the red line in the next graph. So you can see that there is a line like this. With the two line approximation, vertical line through the break frequency passes through the theoretical break frequency on the accurate response shown in brown. So this is your accurate, this is ideal, and you can find that this is the break frequency also. But anyways, you are able to find it from there also. But if you want to find there, then you need to do it in this way, that you have to draw a line at 45 degree across this point there to this one at 45 degree, then you will get it same way. Try this question yourself. I'll upload the solution of it, and if you don't understand it, then we'll discuss it in the discussion chapter, the time when we will use for discussion. Design a low pass filter. So in a similar way, you will do all the calculation, and you have to do for this one also. Now what is a high pass filter? As I told you, a high pass filter is used to remove the low frequency components from the signal. The circuit is straightforward. So if you see, the capacitance is and resistance interchange their places, and the equation will be now V out equals to V in divided by Z into R. So now R is here, so R will come here, and Z remains same in both the conditions. So voltage gain then will be R divided by under root of R square plus X square C. Looking at the extremes, when the frequency is high, then R square is greater than X square C, and X square C will be so small that it can be ignored compared to the size of R square. So then Xc square will be 0 basically, or you can say it's very small as compared to R square. So R will cancel with R, So at when the frequency is high, then voltage gain will be equals to 1. So whatever you are applying in that range, the output is equals to the value of input. When the frequency is low, x square c is greater than r square, so this is greater than r square, so effectively this will reduce to x square c, and root of x square c is xc, so it will be xc here, and then we can say r divided by 1 divided by 2 pi fc. This part will go up, so it will be 2 pi fc. This is smaller than 1, and so the low frequency signals will be suppressed. So in a similar way, the value of r and xc are equal somewhere in between these extremes, and that point is called as your break frequency, where r and c are equals. The frequency at which this occurs is called break frequency, and you can find it fb equals to 1 upon 2 pi rc. This formula is identical for low pass filter, but the conditions, or you can say the range of frequencies for which you are operating, they are different. In a similar way, the value of V out at the break frequency will be this. Remember that this is V in again here. V in, the in here which is shifted, and in here, so this is also V in here. Now for this circuit you have to do all the calculations, and same thing you have to do for this. Discuss in designing a high pass filter. So earlier we looked at how to obtain the frequency response for a given circuit. Now the reverse is designing a high pass filter to meet a given response. So earlier it was, we were doing it for a low pass filter, now we are doing it for the high pass filter. So if we plot it, then ideally it should be of this waveform. I explained you what these on the x-axis means and the y-axis. So you have to use these values, and you have to try designing a high pass filter. Okay, if you see, the things are defined and you have to design a high pass filter here. Rearrange the break frequency in this way and try to find out the values. If you are not able to do it, obviously I am going to solve this for you. So first of all, you have to try this, see what range of capacitance will give you a high pass filter, which one of this capacitance range is giving you that range, whether it's a high pass filter or a low pass filter. So you have to design a high pass filter, remember. So you have to pick one of the capacitance which can be used for a high pass filter. However, it has been shown here, but you have to look at these calculations, that why this is particular capacitance is used for high pass filter, depending upon the theory which we did in the previous slides. Again, you have to solve this. Now band pass filter. One of the most important circuit used in communication system is your band pass filter or resonant filter. These are usually at frequencies much higher than the audio range. So it has a lower limit of frequency and upper limit. The ideal band pass filter has the following characteristics, and we have a resonant filters operates an additional component called an inductor. This is coil of wire. You must know what an inductor is. Inductor is measured in henries Practical inductors are usually measured in millihenries or microhenries. In DC circuits, inductors used as wire. They pass a continuous current with the little opposition. In AC circuits, however, the opposition is much bigger. Both inductors and capacitors limit AC in a way that resembles the behavior of resistance in DC circuits. The opposition to the flow of an AC current is called reactance. Capacitors have capacitive reactance and inductors have inductive reactance. Both are measured in ohm. So if you see your inductance, it's defined as, if you remember the resonance circuit, omega into L or equals to 2 pi f L. So higher the frequency, higher is the value of inductance. Lower the frequency, lower is the value of reactance. So if f is equals to 0 for DC, then XL is equals to 0. So means it passed DC as it is. No change in the behavior of the DC voltage applied across an inductor. So the formula for both of them are given. Capacitive reactance plot is like this. The relation of reactance with inductance is, can say it's basically an equation of y equals to mx line. Sorry for that. So we were here that y equals to mx line. If I compare this with this, so xl is your y and L is your x, and omega behaves as your m, which is the slope of the line. So it's a straight line passing through origin. The graph shows that inductive reactance increases linearly with the frequency, whereas capacitive reactance decreases non-linearly. The resonant filter circuit consists of a parallel combination, or you can say the band pass filter circuit consists of a parallel combination of a capacitor and an inductor. A resistor R is connected in series with this combination to reduce the current drawn from the source at very high and very low frequencies. To analyze this circuit and calculate V out at different frequencies is complicated and beyond the scope of this course. But we have done this thing, a bit of this in resonance circuit, if you remember. So we can examine what happens under specific circumstances, okay, depending upon the previous graph. The input frequency, when this input frequency is low, in this case the reactance of the inductance is very low, the reactance of the capacitance is very high. Just use these equations when you are doing this, that x of L equals to omega L and x of C is equals to 1 upon omega C. So when frequency is low, you can say XL is very low. When frequency is low here, XC will be high because it's in the denominator, is very high. Most current flows through the inductor rather than the capacitor, and the reason is the inductor will allow the current to flow through it, the capacitance will block it because it provides the high reactance to it. So if you see the output across two parallel, whether it's resistance or two capacitance or a combination of them, the voltage across them must be equal. So because this is not allowing the current to flow it, the voltage across it will try to keep the voltage low. It's allowing the current to flow it, so it will try to keep the voltage high. But the rule of the parallel combination is that the voltage must be same. So whatever the voltage across the capacitance will be, that will be the voltage across both of them. So most of the current flows through the inductor rather than capacitor. The output voltage is negligibly small. Now the input frequency is very high. Now if input frequency is high, then this will increase, so it has very high value, and this as a very low value. Again, in this case, the capacitance will allow the current to pass through it, but the inductance will not allow the current through to pass through it, which means that voltage across the parallel combination will be low. So again, the output voltage is negligibly small. So if you see, this is my F. L means low frequency, and then I have a high frequency. So means for this range and this range, means the values below that, means both these range, we have a output voltage negligibly small. So means they try to keep the voltage low, so the graph will be something like this. Okay, so it will become high for this certain range of frequencies, and then as the high frequency will come, it will start decreasing also. Now mid range of frequencies, which I explained, is this one. Here the reactance of both inductor and capacitor is significant, means it's not too high, too low. Both branches of the parallel circuit have appreciable reactance at one very special frequency called the resonance frequency. The reactance of the inductor and capacitors are equal to the equal, and the output voltage will be maximum. So it will lead to an sorry, I'm not able to draw it properly, but it will be something like this, which we draw in the resonance circuit. It will be something like this, and we did the calculation for it in the resonance circuit, but beyond the scope of this chapter or course, you can say. However, it is possible to calculate the resonant frequency. If it's given like this, then you need to find the operation of your resonant frequency of the band pass filter. So just put the values, and that will be the value of this. And if you want to plot it, you can plot it also. Okay, depending upon the V input you will apply, you will get the V output. You need to use all the formulas which we used in the resonant circuit. I'm going to give you all this in the form of a report. So you have to make a report which is of 5% depending upon these parameters, so that you will prepare them also, and you can submit them also, which will be helpful for you to prepare. Okay, the response is not same as that of an ideal band pass filter, as the following illustration shows. So you can see the ideally it should be like this, but as I told you, at low frequencies the gain or the amplitude or the output is low, but it's not equals to 0. However, ideally it should be equals to 0. So the actual plot of a band pass filter is like this. Ideally it should be like this. Now then we have some questions and things. I'm removing this part for the dynamic resistance for you, for this test at least. I need to find out from you whether you know anything about dynamic resistance or not. So but for test 2, this is not can say the part of your coverage scope of the test, this also. Okay, and if I'm saying that, then this question is also not there. So this question is not there for you. Now Q factor and selectivity, this thing we did in our resonance chapter, so you all know how to do this. Again, anything with related to your RD, I'm not going to ask you any questions related to that. What basically this is, however, is that ideally we consider that our coil or the inductor is having only inductance there, but it has some resistive losses also. So if the inductor has a resistive losses also, then we have resistance also there. So when an inductor is present in the circuit, then you have a resistance and inductance there. However, we have an extra resistance there also, but due to the non-ideal nature of your inductance, we have some value of resistance available there. So if you studied this part, then I'll explain it to you for the future work, but not for this test. Okay. Wherever there is no effect of your RD, you have to, so this is again the part of RD. I'll realize it later that R, maybe you are not aware of RD or not, so that's why I'm explaining it now, that you don't have to do this part. Again, this question has that. So what I will ask you to do is that remove this from there and then solve this question by removing this. So you will consider that you have a resistance of 10k here and you have an inductance of 0.1 millihenry. So there is no effect of this RL or RD there. Okay, so you will consider that inductor to be an ideal inductor with RL equals to 0. Okay, so you will not consider this part, and then you have to do all the calculations. You don't have to derive this dynamic resistance of the circuit. Plot it without considering the effect of that. All this part again you have to do without considering the effect of R. Again in this question also consider it equals to 0 even if it's given.